To kind of kick things off here, how did each one of you guys get started in your puppeteering journeys?
Interesting. I'll let Toby tell his story. My parents are puppeteers. So I grew up as a kid with puppetry all around me, but I wanted to work in movies. I got a lucky break, but I used to make puppets, I used to do prosthetic makeup, so I used to do cosplay before it was even called cosplay. And for me it was Planet of the Apes. So I made my own Planet of the Apes masks and costumes and made cine films. So I kind of built my own skills of building puppets and building movie things. And I got a lucky break and was introduced to Stuart Freeborn. He was the makeup supervisor on the Star Wars films, the guy who sculpted and made Yoda and Jabba as well. And he took me on at age 19 as a trainee. So that's how I got into the Star Wars world.
Mine's a different story, really. My dad was a puppeteer, but I didn't become a puppeteer. I went off into circus. I was a street performer. I used to do juggling and walk on my hands and fire eating, one-wheel bicycle and all that sort of stuff. But I was very fit. I was an acrobat. And Jim Henson, for filming for The Dark Crystal, didn't need puppeteers like this, but he needed people to do the really big creatures. I mean, imagine Big Bird or something like that. And these big creatures are very uncomfortable. And the puppeteers didn't want to do them, so they hired a bunch of all sorts, acrobats, mime people, ballet dancers and all sorts, to do the uncomfortable creatures. So my first job was doing In Dark Crystal, if you know the film. I'm inside a mystic, and I'm inside a Garthim, and I was just a background character doing uncomfortable, like stuntman, really. But then once we were on the film, we were all given assigned to one of the Muppet puppeteers, because the puppets needed 2 or 3 people. And I got assigned to Jim Henson's crew. So when he's doing something like the Ritual Master, his I'm sorry, I'm breaking up. But he would be doing the head with his right hand and the left hand, and I'd be stuck in his armpit just doing the right hand, which was the kind of job. So if you know the movie, whenever Jim's doing something, I'm doing something silly. I'm learning to be a puppeteer, and I'm learning filming and all that sort of stuff, but very modest amount. I could be moving the eyes or whatever like that. But as David said, just at that point, we were starting to do really complicated puppets. Jabba, for instance, involved anything up to 6 people. It was always at least 3 or 4, because of the radio-controlled eyes. I'm doing the left hand and the head and the tongue. He's doing the right hand and the mouth and the voice, and so on. But we'll go into that later. But yeah, my way in was being an acrobat. It had nothing to do with puppetry at all. There you go.
But I think the thing is that you did have a knowledge of puppetry and an appreciation of it, so it was not completely out of your knowledge base, but it's not where you were initially planning on being.
All right, this question's for both of you guys. How in-depth was your instruction on acting for Jabba the Hutt? Like, were you given insights into his psyche, or what kind of character you were doing, or like what kind of personality were you told to put into that in your performance?
Interesting, yeah. Well, Toby and I we'd been rehearsing a bit. We came in one Saturday to meet with George Lucas and with Richard Marquand to talk about Jabba, and they mentioned the Sydney Greenstreet character that he was based on, and they just told us basically the sort of thing that they wanted, but then it was up to us to make that come to life physically. So how he would move and how he would react to stuff, and that's a lot of that's based also on how the puppet itself can be performed. So the puppet can't do everything, so you have to find what the puppet does really well and focus on that. But then, as Toby said, there was like up to 6 of us, so we all had to be on the same page as what the character of Jabba would be.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of Jabba's character is in the actual sculpture. If you look at him, even before we're moving him around, he was an extraordinary character, and that really helps. That's the mask that we're working with. But what we're doing is bringing him to life. That's what we're doing is animating him. But he looked fantastic. When we came in the morning, he was already sitting there looking like he's asleep, just he's got his eyes shut, you know. And the guy who radio controlled the eyes used to change the batteries to make sure they didn't run out while we were filming. And he said it made him jump. Jabba would be sitting there, he'd put the batteries in, he'd open the eyes, and when the eyes opened to look at it, he'd jump back. That's how strong his presence is. So our job is then on top of that, adding all the, you know, the animation with the arms and the body and the head and stuff. But he was a fantastic puppet to work. He was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, he really was state of the art as well for the day. I mean, Yoda was for Empire, but it was really, and everything we did on Dark Crystal as well. That was the most sophisticated animatronic puppets that had ever been built, and that just kept going on for a number of years. Everyone kept trying to push the envelope.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, guys. So the next question is for both of you as well. Take the audience on a little journey. What does it feel like inside of Jabba's body, like temperature-wise, sight-wise, smell-wise? What's going on in there?
Okay, yeah. First of all, we're in street clothes. We're not wearing Jabba. We just climbed inside him. He's like a cave, so we would climb a ladder up inside him, put our arms out, get the sleeves put on and so on. But it was filming in January and February of a very cold winter. And a film studio is like an aircraft hangar, so really cold, except when those big lights are on. And people in costumes were going from extremely cold. I mean, imagine Princess Leia in a bikini. It was freezing. And then the lights come on and then it's really hot. So in one sense, although we were stuffy and crowded, our temperature control wasn't too bad. I mean, they toyed with blowing cold air. We don't need cold air. We're fine. We're in street clothes and we're just inside and relatively comfortable.
Yeah, we were, and it became muscle memory after a while. Because we would get in there at 8:30 in the morning, and we'd stay in there till it was 1 o'clock for lunch. We'd get out for the lunch break for 1 hour, get back in at 2, and sometimes stay until sometimes 8 o'clock at night. And we would just be there all day long, every day while we were inside Jabba. So it was. Fortunately, we weren't carrying the weight because he was very heavy, so we were self-supported on springs. We couldn't see anything out at all, and we really couldn't hear anything.
No, not really.
So we had these little earpieces that they were sending a signal from the set, so we could kind of hear a tinny, bad quality sound that sometimes would cut out, and that was what we could hear. And I had a little microphone on my chest for when I was speaking Jabba's lines. They would play that to a speaker so everyone could hear what I was saying, because they couldn't hear my voice inside Jabba because we were inside this large, like foam monster. So we couldn't see out. So the only way of being able to see is they put a video camera up in the lighting rig, way up, pointing down at us, and then we had television monitors on our chest, which we could see what that camera was seeing. So because when I would move my hand and Toby, we couldn't actually reach fingers, we couldn't touch.
He's so fat.
Yes,
right?
We couldn't actually reach each other's hands. So something like pulling the chain was actually really difficult, because we can't see anything, and we can't hear anything, and we can't really feel anything. We've got mechanical extensions on our fingers to create Jabba's typical 3-fingered hand, so we had to really rehearse that, all the chain work, which looks very straightforward, but it was actually really difficult.
I mean, most of that stuff, we'd been spoiled on Dark Crystal because Jim Henson was a puppeteer and he'd done the Muppet Show, so they tried to make sure that puppeteers could see exactly what the camera was seeing. I mean, so if you knew you were in close-up or in a wide shot or on the edge of the frame, they didn't bother on Star Wars. To them, puppeteers weren't that interesting. I mean, we're not just film extras. He's obviously a main character, but they didn't do But so we were working virtually blind. The guys with the radio controls doing the eyes told us what worked and what didn't work when we were animating, because we would do something that the director would say, "Give us a big laugh," and we'd go, "Ho, ho, ho," and they go, "There's almost nothing showing because of all the rubber." We go, "Ho." You know, literally flinging ourselves around inside there sometimes. You can't even imagine what we're doing in there.
Yeah, because again, if the camera's really close, you have to do a very small one, because otherwise it would be out of camera, be strobing everywhere. But if the shot's a wide shot, you have to make the actions bigger.
Yeah.
To make it look the same. So you have to adjust your performance to every single camera angle. So, yeah.
But they figured it out eventually. We told the director to direct us like an actor. Don't talk about us like puppeteers. Don't say who's moving that hand, who's doing. We'd say, just say to Jabba, "I want you to be really angry, look that way," and whatever. And direct us like that. And it's our problem to work out how to make it look like that. So it was quite a complicated thing. We missed all the social life of filming. Normally filming takes a long time, and you hang around on the set with a load of other people, reading newspapers and eating sandwiches and drinking coffee. Well, we were inside all day, in our own little world.
And really couldn't hear what was going on, because if they didn't think we needed to hear, they'd turn the earpiece off, and they'd turn my microphone down. So we basically were cut off inside there for great chunks of time.
Very nice. Quick question specifically for Toby, because you were responsible for the left arm and the head movement of Jabba. So his tongue waggling, that shot is one of my, when Leia is strangling him, that's one of my favorite shots that we have. Was that difficult to pull off?
Well, I'll give you an idea of how complicated it could be. That's eating the frog, for instance. So eating the frog's in the hooker, okay, if you haven't seen it, whatever. I have to turn the head and look down to where the frog is. Then I reach down like that, and some guy hands me a rubber frog. Now I'm bringing the frog up, I'm straightening the head up. Dave's opening the mouth, sorry. I put the frog in, he does chewing, and while he's chewing, I'm putting my hand in the tongue to then lick the lips. And that's quite complicated.
Yes, and so the tongue isn't some kind of sophisticated mechanical device,
no,
it's just Toby's hand. So using pure puppetry to bring his tongue to life. But then you can feel it, you can wrap it around the jaw, the lower lip of the jaw. So.
There was one moment that I'll tell you this. We did about 2 or 3 takes, because on the first take, I put the frog in and they did it. Okay, we'll do it again. The second time I put it in, he started chewing, but the rubber leg was still sticking out. So he's chewing, doing this thing. And they went, cut, because I was fiddling around trying to get into the tongue. They went, no, cut. And they went off to talk about it, and we were going, what's going on? They said, you didn't put the frog all the way in the mouth. And the leg was wiggling around, and it looked too disgusting. And I go, how can Jabba eating be too disgusting? You'd think that would be a brilliant take. But they went, no, make sure the frog goes all the way in. So next time you watch it, you will see my hand go up, put the frog in, and then go, just making sure the leg is down, before doing the tongue.
Yeah, because we can't actually see. We're inside, and you're just like, can you feel it? No, because you've got extensions on your hands, big rubber gloves, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, you'll notice.
So, I mean, so we talked about like how there was like these 3 or 4 of you guys in there at one time. What was that training process like to get in sync with that many people all at once? Like, how long did it take, or what kinds of things were involved with making sure you got, because you had a tail guy and both arm guys, and then some guy underneath, like, who's using wires and things. What was that process like?
Well, yeah, most of the builders did the bit that they'd worked on. So, the guy who invented the radar control for the eyes would be doing the eyes and so on. They all wanted to help. Their worst job was actually painting that horrible gloop on the tongue. The last one on the day got a bucket full of this horrible stuff, he'd open the mouth, I'd stick the tongue out, and they would paint him with this horrible. So that's real. That's disgusting stuff that's coming out of his mouth and nose. But so they were always there for that. But the process, the tail guy we'd worked with again on Dark Crystal. He was quite an experienced puppeteer animator, and we more or less left him to himself because he said the animation, his job was really if Jabba's angry, he's going to wave the tail around. If he's bored, he's going to tap it like this. We more or less left him to it. I mean, obviously David's chief puppeteer, so he would direct him, but he was sort of separate. We had to coordinate because of the hands and so on. The guys with the eyes were improvising solutions the same way that I'd done for Jim on Dark Crystal. You rehearse it a bit. You work out how often to blink and narrow the eyes and things. And of course, if you look left, you might want the eyes to go without the head, or they might want me to move the head and the eyes together. So you do talk to it. We were all on a little closed circuit thing, separate from the studio. So we could talk to each other as a team and kind of coordinate. But it was complicated.
Very nice, very nice. For Mr. Barclay, I have a quick question about Yoda, because you also worked on Yoda a little bit. Did you feel the importance of what was happening when you took over Frank Oz, or was it kind of just like another day at the office? What was that experience like?
Oh, no, it was amazing because I was like 19 years old. I'd been very lucky, I felt, to get on to the build crew, the people who were building Yoda. So I became part of that team, and I had no expectations of being a puppeteer at all on it. I was just one of the people in the makeup laboratory building Yoda. And then somebody was ill on set, and this is all days well before cell phones. They needed someone to fill in for that afternoon. And Stuart knew that I was a second generation puppeteer, that my mum and dad were puppeteers, and I had puppeteered. I'd done some TV work. I hadn't done any film work, but I'd done some TV work, so I knew the principal. He said, "Oh, David can go down and fill in for the afternoon." So I was literally, I didn't rehearse, I wasn't auditioning or anything. I just turned up. They gave me Yoda's eye controls, and Frank said, "Yeah, don't screw it up," basically. So then I got to the end of the day, and I thought, wow, I've actually had a day puppeteering with Yoda, with Frank Oz. I was like over the moon, and expecting to go back to the makeup laboratory and just clean out molds and do everything that I've been doing. Frank saw rushes, and rushes were the film processed the next morning to see what it looked like. And he said, saw rushes, he really liked what I did with the eyes. He wanted me to stay on doing the eyes for the rest of the movie. So this was like amazing. I couldn't believe it. I was never originally going to be part of the Yoda puppeteering team, but I just happened to fall into it. So for the rest of the movie, I was puppeteering Yoda's eyes and helping Frank with the puppet, and just doing anything that I could for the performance of Yoda. And but Irvin Kershner wouldn't let anything bad out. If the shot wasn't working, we'd keep working till it was really nice, because I think George and everybody wanted Yoda to be as good as he possibly could be, and that took a lot of time, that took a lot of takes and a lot of effort. And typically we say shooting a puppet takes twice as long as shooting an actor. I think it was probably more like 3 times with Yoda, because there were 4 of us. There was Frank, the main puppeteer, Kathy Mullen doing Yoda's right hand, because Frank was doing the head and the left hand. I was doing the eyes, and Wendy was doing the ears. So, and this was before Dark Crystal, so Frank had to work out how we would all work together. So it took us a long time to film, and the problem with that is we were way over schedule. So it's like, well, way behind schedule, in fact. And Frank had to go and do another job. He was contracted. Everyone knew he had to go. And so they said, well, and I said, well, I guess we'll wait till Frank's done his job. He'll come back and we'll finish it off. And they said, no. 2 weeks' time, the set's got to come down. So we can't wait. Frank's going to have to nominate someone to take over. And again, I just thought, oh, well, that's probably Jim Henson or one of the Muppet people. Frank said, no, you take over, David. And it's like, whoa. he basically launched my movie puppeteering career by allowing me to take over for those last 2 weeks of filming. And it was such a generous thing of him to do, because I'm sure there were other puppeteers that probably far more skilled, but he said, I knew the character, and it's not about muppeteering, and it's really figuring out the character and acting this puppet in the character of Yoda. And because I'd been there for all the shots and all the weeks filming with the eyes, I knew the intent of Yoda, I knew Yoda's character. So I was able to sort of perform Yoda, and it just launched the rest of my life. It literally changed my life that day.
Yes, thank you so much for that. That's a great story. And then for any aspiring puppeteers or practical special effects artists, do you have any advice for them? Questions for both of you, gentlemen?
I don't know. People ask advice, how do you get in the business? You just heard that Dave it's not just lucky, obviously it's talent as well, and Frank helping choose him. I never worked out why Jim had picked me to be on his crew, but I was so honoured, because it meant I was working on every detail of the film. Every frame in The Dark Crystal, I'm doing something. Maybe a little detail in the background or whatever, but Jim was so generous. As I said, I got into it by being an acrobat. Well, you don't train to be an acrobat to try and get into movies. That's not how it works. You've got to be in the right place at the right time. Luck does come into it as well as talent. But if you want to do puppets and special effects, David's route is the way. You've got to be able to make them and operate them and understand how puppets work, because they're a very special kind of magic. I mean, I was lucky, as you said, because my dad was a puppeteer, I was aware of how puppets work. They really are magic. There's something you can't put your finger on about why Frank is so good, why Yoda is alive. You don't think about how Yoda is being done. You don't think about Fozzie Bear being made out of felt, or Miss Piggy is alive. I mean, they're alive, aren't they? In your head, they're alive. And that's some kind of magic skill. And certainly, if you build the puppets as well as operate them, you become aware of the limitations of them and how to express things through the actual puppets. I was lucky. I just animated puppets that someone else had built. But I think Dave would tell you more about how it works if you want to do the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, certainly with animatronics today, there's far less work than when we were doing it in the 80s and 90s. We knew that computer animation was going to take over, and it did. And I've become a computer animator myself. I can animate in the computer, and I've done a few projects. I'm passionate about puppetry, so I didn't continue with it. But it's the work really did, for everybody, really peter out. There's not so much puppet work around, but there's a lot of live theatre work, and people love that. And that's where my parents started, and Toby's father. And so there is still a love for that. It's like the Lion King Broadway shows, of course, the Little Shop of Horrors stage productions. So there's ways of doing puppetry, but if you really want to get into films, it's primarily these days with visual effects. You can do special effects where you blow things up and you rig everything. A couple of my very good friends, Peter Chesney is a genius at that, and so he was building things that you thought were computer effects, they were real. It's unbelievable, guys. So it is possible to get into that. So there's engineering needed in that sort of thing. Or if you're very good computer eyes, you can animate characters and create that in computers. What AI is going to do in the future, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I think a passion for what you want to do, because same for Toby as me, I think. We didn't do the job because we were going to go, oh yeah, we're going to be sort of working in movies. We did it because I do it because I love creating those characters and bringing the characters to life. And so I think that's what I love. So
well, yeah, I mean, I said I was a street performer. I did theatre and stuff as well, but it was to do with live shows. I wasn't into doing TV acting or anything like that. I really liked interacting with an audience, which is why street performing particularly, you've got to attract the crowd first of all, then you've got to keep them there, because they can just walk away. They haven't paid for a seat, they're not just sitting there politely waiting for you. If they find you boring, they wander off and do something else, like you could right now, for instance. But I liked that live interaction, and I know my dad, when he did puppets, liked the kids shouting out, and then the puppets could talk back to them. You know, it wasn't just something over there that you look at like a television, it's something you interact with. And that's why, although you won't get as much film work now, as Dave said, live performance is still an area where they need people who can do that and can perform live every night, new, you know.
All right, thank you guys so much for spending time with us. If you would like to meet Mr. David Barclay or Mr. Toby Philpott, they are in the back. Let's give it up for Jabba, the men inside the Jabba suit, the puppeteers themselves, and so much more. So much more. Thank you, gentlemen.